G'day gamers! Excuse me, Ranger Tony here with a video that I am calling Oblivion Survival Guide. Your armor is going to kill you. Because I think a lot of people don't understand how armor works in Oblivion and how it really will kill you if you don't understand it. And I'm going to show you how you can fix it. So let's dive on in. I am going to switch a little bit between the game and some wiki pages, so bear with me on that. But overall, armor is an interesting concept in the game. Now, I've got a character here who is actually level 19 and a mage, so they're really not used to wearing armor. In fact, if we have a look, my heavy armor skill is only 14, so it's a little bit higher than what it probably would have been for this character. It probably would have been 10 when I first started. Well, actually, it would have been 5. I don't even know how I got to 14 then. But anyway, well, I know that I did actually wear some armor because I was mucking around in the arena. But let's put on some armor and we will talk about it. So there I am, a full set of heavy armor, the early game heavy armor, iron armor. You can find rusty iron, but yeah, it's pretty bad. And you'll see that says 24 there. It's actually not 24 points. If you add them up, 5, 6, 8, 9. Well, the shield isn't being taken into account, so it's 9 points, and I have the Lord birth sign, which gives me an extra 15 points of armor, so that's why it's 24. So if you get early game armor, you're getting 9 points of protection, potentially 14 points if you're using a shield and you actually have a weapon in your hand. I don't have a weapon on me that I can use to get that bonus, but that's an okay starting armor, right? However, if you are the sort of person who follows the wiki, you'll know that you should have 40 armor there, not 9. Like, you've got less than a quarter of what you should have, less than 25%. Well, that would be 40 with a shield, so 14 is about a third of that. So yeah, that's really not great. Now that's because my skill in heavy armor is only 14. The only way that I can get the full 40 points out of that armor is if I have 100 in heavy armor, and that is going to take you a very, very long time. So what that means is if you come in here and you have a look at the wiki and you look at any of these and you go, well, oh man, the Dwarven armor gives me 50 points of protection. I get 55 from Orcish. I get 60 from Ebony, and I get 75 from Daedric. But you're not going to see Daedric armor until you are at least level 20. And that's only when it first starts to appear in the random, the lists of equipment, and when you'll start to see it appear in shops. It will not be common until quite a few levels after that. So it's going to be a long time before you get that high level. Now, so what does a full set of iron armor, 14 points at the moment, or 40 points eventually. What is that doing for you? Well, the way armor works is, and this doesn't matter whether it's heavy armor or light armor, it doesn't matter. Either of these groups is all the same. It is a percentage of damage reduction, right? So at the moment, with this current setup, I am 24% reduction, or I am taking 75% damage from a hit from any weapon, including like natural weapons, fists, claws, bites, whatever. Magic is a different story. Magic is not calculated. Armor doesn't affect magic at all, but normal attacks, I am basically reducing 25%, 24% of the damage. Now, the maximum armor you can get is 85. Now, you will notice that even the best armor in the game, Daedric armor, is only 75% effective. So you can't actually reach the armor cap with a normal set of Daedric armor. You can if you have a high skill in the armorer skill, which is used to repair equipment. If you are expert level 75 or higher, then you can increase the durability of an item beyond 100%, which means as a weapon it does more damage, or as armor it protects more. So you can probably get, I don't know the figures on this, but you would definitely be able to get Daedric armor to the 85% cap, and you might even be able to get some of these other armors like Orcish and Ebony to the 85 cap if you had high enough level in armorer. So that is the basis of how armor protects you, but there's more to it than that, because armor has a durability, a health to it. And as that durability goes down, the amount of protection that it gives goes down proportionately, right? I don't know if it's a one-to-one, but it goes down, right? So what it means is armor is protecting you from a certain amount of damage, but the more it has protected you, the less it protects you. So every time you get hit, it is going to protect you just that little bit more. A little bit less, sorry. And that is going to be a problem, right? Now, if the durability, if the health goes down, and you never see 250 against the armor. Like if we go and have a look, we have a look in here at our inventory. We see this as a percentage. These are all at 100% health. They have more than 100 health, some of these items. Some have less, some have more. But they are at 100% health at the moment. Now, as they go down, as I said, they protect you less. And these figures will drop. These protection figures here will drop. And you will see your overall armor value drop. Now, there is no known calculation or formula to determine which piece of armor gets hit in any attack. It doesn't like hit scan and say, oh, they hit me in the chest, therefore my cuirass is going to take damage, or they hit me in the leg, or in the foot, so my boot is going to take damage. No, there is nothing. You might see them swing at you and say that hit me in the face, but it'll be your arm or your foot or your leg that takes the damage, or even the shield might take the damage. You do not know. There's no way to tell, but every piece of item over time will be taking damage. Not all of them at once, but just out of random luck. If you want to call it luck, every piece will be hit. Now, as the health of the item goes down, they protect you less, but they always have a minimum defensive value of 1, which means that a full set of armor with a shield, being 6 pieces, will always have a minimum armor of 6. Even if every piece of your armor is considered broken, and they show a little broken icon next to them in here, and it tells you on the screen when it happens, your armor has broken, and it'll tell you the piece. That can happen, but the armor will still give you absolute minimal protection. Now, this is where the game sort of screws you over. Like, you can see that mechanism already is going to be a problem, because you're going to start with some armor, at this point in the game, when I am level, what did I say I was? Level 19, I should expect that I have been able to find a few pieces of ebony armor, and the rest should probably be orcish at this point, right? So even if I only had a full set of orcish armor, and at level 19, I would be expecting that my armor skill is getting up there. I'd say it might even be at like 75%. So I should be getting close to the 55 value. So yeah, 55 value for my orcish armor. I mean, it might be 45, right? Or somewhere around there. But it's not going to be 6, right? So I should be protecting at that level. But if I get into a fight with multiple opponents, or if I just forget to repair my armor, it could be a lot less than that. And if my armor gets broken in the middle of a battle, which it can and will do, I'm going to go from having 45, 40, 45, 50, 55 armor down to 6. And that's going to really screw you over, because it just means you're taking more and more damage, because also at the same time, your opponents, by the time you're level 19, your opponents are doing a lot more damage with their hits. If you take, I'd have to go and look it up. Hang on, let me do that. Let's just, okay. So if we look at something like a Minotaur, now Minotaurs are large, aggressive, and the first time you see them, you will probably crap yourself, right? They first appear at level 14, right? So by the time I'm level 19, I should have seen the odd Minotaur about. You find them out in the wilderness, but you also find them in occasional dungeons. Now, in the original game, the original Oblivion, they would have had 300 health. In the remaster, they'll have just over 100 health. But they're going to do 20 to 30 points of damage per hit, right? And they swing very fast and a lot. Now, if my armor is at, let's say it's at 50, so I'm doing 50% damage reduction, I'm taking 15 points of damage per hit to begin with from a 30-point melee attack by one of these guys. And then later on, as my armor starts degrading, I'm going to start taking more and more and more until, if my armor is completely degraded, I'm essentially going to take almost the full 30 points. It's going to be like 28 out of 30 points I'm going to take, because my armor is only protecting me, giving me 6% damage reduction. That means my health is going to go down very, very quickly. And quicker as time goes by in a battle. And you've only got 220. I've only got, for this character, 226. Now, I did not build this character for health. So, you may potentially have some more health than that on your character. But that's 66 endurance. Gives me 226. The maximum endurance is 100. And I do have a character somewhere that has that, but I don't remember what the value is, and I'd have to look up the formula. But what I'm getting at is, you're going to get into battle with creatures that, when you first start the game, your opponents are doing very little damage, right? So at the start of the game, for example, you might come across a mud crab. Mud crabs only do 8 points of damage. If you've got armor which is giving you 10 or 14 points of damage reduction, like we've just seen, 15% of 8 isn't even like 1 point. So essentially, you're going to take 7 points out of the possible 8 of damage. Your armor is going to block really only 1 point of damage out of that. And that's what sort of tricks you at the start of the game, because you feel like, you know, I can take these hits. This is not too bad. They're only doing 7 points of damage at a time. You'll probably, you know, you'll be able to take a few of those hits before you really have to worry. And so you start at the early part of the game, you start really feeling like, this is fairly okay. I don't have to worry too much. My armor is doing its job. But very quickly, your opponents start doing more and more damage. And if your armor isn't keeping up, and it never keeps up, it's not, the game is sort of rigged against you in that way, then you very quickly get to the point where you start noticing that the hits that you receive are always much more. And you very quickly notice that if you get surrounded by, you know, maybe not 2, but 3 enemies, you're in real trouble, because you may not be able to take down some of those enemies quick enough to stop your health going down very, very, very quickly, because you're taking multiple hits, which is degrading your armor really quickly. And before you know it, you can have some pieces of armor which are broken, and you're taking essentially full damage on every hit. And it gets really hard. And then the other thing that comes into all of this, of course, is that after every fight, you are going to have to repair your armor. Now, it's not such a big deal with your weapons, but with your... it's not such a big deal with your weapons, but with your armor, it definitely is. After every single fight, you want to repair your armor, which means you've got to carry around a ton of armor as hammers, repair hammers, and you've got to make sure that you can move to somewhere that is far enough away from all the enemies that are around you that you can actually repair. And inside dungeons, that can be very, very hard to accomplish. And then if you do happen to aggro an enemy and they come running after you and your armor is, you know, mostly trashed, you don't have a lot of options. You know, you're just going to have to get the hell out of there as quickly as you can, or just spam potions, fight through it, do whatever you can to survive. The game does not make it easy when it comes to armor. If you rely on your armor alone, you are going to die. So, what can you do about this? Well, that's where magic comes in, right? So, there is... this is the first spell. If you take Alteration as a skill, you will get this spell at the start. Otherwise, you can go and buy it, and it is a novice level Alteration spell, so you can cast it, but it's not that great, because as you can see, it gives you 5% shield, so 5% or 5 armor bonus for 30 seconds. Now, the really good thing about this is the magic does not degrade as you get hit. So it'll be 5% at the start of the battle, and if it's still on at the end of the battle, it'll still be 5%. Now, as you go up in levels, you can find higher and higher versions of that. This is Defend, which I think might not be Apprentice, it might be the next level up. But it's 15% for 30 seconds. And you know, you don't have to buy the pre-made spells. You can make your own, and you can come up with values that are different to the, 5%, 15. You might find that you can get to like 17% on your current level, but, it's going to cost you a lot more magicka. And you might also want to build one that goes for longer time. But all of those combinations will work out. How long it goes for and how much defense it gives you will depend on your level in alteration. So you will have problems there. But you don't want, like, that's 15%. That's okay, you know. And higher levels, yeah, it gets higher. I don't remember what the. Let's go and have a look what the highest value is. Hang on. All right, here it is. Here, the expert level shield spell called Shield. Strange about that. Gives you 40%. So the best spell you can buy gives you 40% for 30 seconds, and it costs you 151 magicka. Now, it'll probably be less than 151, depending on your level in... Or it could be more, depending on your level. Like, you can't cast it until you are at an expert, so level 75. And at level 75, it might be 151, but it might be less as well, because as you increase your skill in alteration, the cost for spells does come down. So there is that. But, you know, 40% shield for 30 seconds, is that enough? Well, no. So what's the best option? Well, it turns out enchanting is the next best option. And I'm going to show you that in this video, right? So you can see here, this is the stats for the shield spell. You have to know the spell, and you have to be able to cast it to be able to enchant it. So if you start the game and you don't have the shield spell, just go and buy it. You can get it from Edgar Vitrine's cheap spell shop in the Imperial City, and there are several other, actually, let's have a look. The Protect spell. There is 1, 2, 3. There are 4 different people. So Edgar Vitrine is the Edgar's discount spells in the Imperial City market. Trayvond is a mage in the Shadenhall Guild, the city on the eastern side of the map. Calendil is... he sells the spells in the Mystic Emporium, which is the other big spell shop in the market district. And Ungarian is from the store called Warlock's Luck in Breville. So any of those will sell you that spell if you don't have it. Grab that spell, grab yourself some filled soul gems, and you can start enchanting. So let's have a look at that. Now, when I showed you here, the petty soul gem gives you 6% shield. Lesser goes to 7, common goes to 8, greater goes to 9, and grand goes to 10. So that all makes sense. So what that means is, if you have a full set of armor, for example, which is what, 6 items, 6 sixes are 36. You can instantly add 36 armor to whatever your current armor is by enchanting it with petty soul gems. And it'll cost you 3,600 gold to make those enchantments, because it costs you both the soul gem and gold to do an enchantment. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense. It's a game. Don't worry about it. All right? But what I'm getting at is, this is something that very early on in the game you can actually accomplish, right? You only need, as I said, 3,600 gold plus another, about another 3,600 actually. So for about 7,000 to 8,000 gold, which isn't that hard to come by, and I'll explain all this in a minute, how I do this, you could enchant a full set of armor and increase its armor ability by 36. But while these enchantments are never going to fade, so as we saw here with our armor that we're wearing at the moment, with our, our 9 points of protection that it's giving us, the extra 36 points would make it, 45. And then, of course, we've got the Lord's birth sign, which would make it 60. Extra 15 points. That is pretty impressive armor. But, as per normal, when your armor takes damage, it will degrade. Now, the enchantment doesn't degrade. Like the spell, the enchantment never goes down. So what you're effectively going to have, if all of that armor gets wiped out, you're not going to have 60 armor. We're ignoring the shield for the moment because it throws out my calculations. Well, actually, no, we do need it. So it would have been 65 points with the extra 5 from the... Well, you don't get an extra 5 from the shield. Yes, we do. An extra 5. So 65 points. So rather than having 65 points of armor, we are going to have 42 points, because each one of those would have a maximum of 1 point if they were all broken. So the 6 from those plus the 36 from the enchantment would be 42. So our armor would be anywhere from 42 to 65, depending on the condition of our armor at any given point. But, you know, that's a pain in the butt, really, because you still got to repair this armor all the time. So just don't. Like, don't use armor. Use plain clothes instead. Right? You can put the enchantment on those, and here's the wonderful thing. Clothes can get hit as many times. This makes no sense at all, but your clothes can get hit over and over and over again, and you will not take a single point of damage to those clothes. They do not degrade at all. So the enchantment that you have on that gear will be the enchantment that you always have on that gear. Now, the other thing I didn't mention is you can also enchant rings and amulets. So what I want to do is I want to really quickly show you all of this. Now we are, if you noticed or not, we are in Frostcrag Spire, right? And Frostcrag Spire has an enchanting table. You can get access to Frostcrag Spire from level 1, and I highly recommend that you do that. Let me actually show you what you do. Right? So, Frostcrag Spire. I'm still wearing my iron gauntlets. There we go. Frostcrag, as we can see on the map, Frostcrag Spire is over here. Now, if you leave Bruma through the east gate and walk down along here, I think you almost go to the here, but I think about here there's a bit of a trail which leads off this way and up to Frostcrag Spire. So follow that. But once you get up here to these steps, not these steps here actually, this first lot of stairs here, turn left and just jump over here. And right here there is a chest. This is on both well, if you're playing the original Oblivion and you have the DLC for Frostcrag Spire, then you will have a key to Frostcrag Spire straight up. But if you're playing Remastered, this chest here has the key to Frostcrag Spire in it. Now, the other option is you can just pick the lock. It's not that hard. I think it's an easy level lock if I remember rightly. And, you know, save scum it if you have to. Just, you know, a handful of lockpicks and you'll get through it and you'll be fine. Now, you don't have all of this stuff when you first get in here. You have to go to... the Imperial City in the Market District and go to the Mystical Emporium, and the High Elf woman who is in there will sell you deeds to the various parts of the building. All you need to buy is one lot of the tallow candles. And those candles should be used on this altar of enchanting right here. And it'll put those 4 candles there on it. And as soon as you do that, you will be able to enchant gear. Right? So let's have a look at enchanting, and I'll show you what we can do. Let me just take off, it doesn't really matter, but let me just take off these extra rings. And that will be fine. Now, let's just quickly enchant up with petty level soul gems. And then I'll show you what we can do with grand. So with a petty soul gem, and we pick shield, right? This is going to give us 6% shield. I then just like to name it. Whoops. Hate when it does that. Shield 6 hood. Now I put a space in front of the name so that once I have cast that and I go into my inventory, it's going to be up near the top. So it's shield there. If I didn't do that, it would be down underneath these items, and I'd have to find it. All of my enchanted items have a space in front of their name, so I can just choose them like that. So let's just quickly go through, do each one of these. Shield 6 doublet. You can pick any clothes that you want. Avoid any of the clothes. Avoid robes, and avoid any of the clothes that say outfit, because outfit and robes are chest and pants in one. There are mods that modify that if you want to, and I think I'm actually using one at the moment, but I'm not going to get into that. Let's just quickly go through and do each one of these. Now, I'm not going to do hands. The only items, this is perhaps one of the most annoying things in Oblivion, is the only unarmored items that you can wear on your hands are the wrist irons that you start the game with. Right? Now, you can get a mod which adds multiple copies of it into the game, and if you go and have a look in the wiki, it says that there are these multiple locations where other wrist irons exist. In Oblivion Remastered, I have not found any others that I could use. So I don't know whether they're not there, or whether I was just not looking in quite the right place, or what the deal was. So if I pick the shoes as well, let's do them, and put on my shield 6 shoes, and then I'll do an amulet. Shield 6 amulet. And a couple of rings. No, like that, like that. Shield 6 ring. Now, I thought there was a bug in the original Oblivion, not a bug, but a feature in the original Oblivion, that if you had 2 items with the same name, so if I called this other ring Shield 6 ring, just exactly the same, I was not able to wear them. But either the unofficial patch mod that I'm using fixes that, or it never was a thing and I was dreaming. But just be aware that that might be a problem. All right. So if I put all of these on, Shield 6 amulet, Shield 6 rings, Shield 6 shoes, with my 15% armor bonus from the Lord's birth sign. I'm level 50. I've got 57 armor. And you can do this at level 1, technically. There's nothing stopping you. All you need is money, and to come here, and that's it. And so that's 57% armor. It would be 40. Well, no, it would be 42. Oh, 6 7s are 42. Yes, it's not 8, not 6 8s are 48. It's 6 7s are 42 because I don't have the wrist irons. If you're going to wait, yeah, so keep the wrist irons if you want to do this, and if you don't have a mod that gives you options to get more. And don't enchant it until you either have a Grand Soul Gem, which gives you 10, which is what this one is, or Sigil Stones, which we'll talk about in a sec. All right? So I can enchant that up that way. Now, Grand Soul Gems, as we just mentioned, Grand Soul Gems give you 10. If you enchant up all 8 pieces of gear, the wrist irons, an amulet, 2 rings, that's 4, doublet, hood, pants, and shoes, that's 8. That's 80 out of the possible 85 that you can get, which is pretty good. And you're not wearing a single piece of actual armor. Nothing is going to degrade when you take a hit. You're never going to have to repair it. And the big advantage if you're playing a wizard is it does not affect your spell effectiveness. Your spell effectiveness is 100%. You'll note that if I come back here and put this armor on, even if I enchanted it, it would not change this. My spell effectiveness is only 82%. So my spells are less effective because I'm wearing armor. And the heavier the armor, the worse that gets. So enchanting is the way to go if you want easy armor at all times throughout the game. Can you do better? Well, yes, I just sort of alluded to that. You actually can. Let me get my other set of gear and I will show you. All right, so if you start the game, if you start the main quest line and you start destroying Oblivion gates, you will get Sigil Stones. Those Sigil Stones can be used to add an enchantment to either weapons or armor/clothing. So that includes amulets, rings, all the stuff that we just showed you. This is the set of equipment that I made after completing the main quest line. Now, I told you about the shield spell. What I didn't tell you about is that there are 3 elemental variations of that spell that are higher level enchantments. So, Electric Shell, Frost Shell, and Heat Shell as apprentice level alteration spells. And you can see they do less. So 10% versus the 15% for the defend at the same level for the same amount of time. But what should be noted here is all of these 3 effects, Shock Shield, Frost Shield, and Fire Shield, they protect you from the element and they give you the same amount of armor as well. So something enchanted with 10% Shock Shield will reduce the damage from shock spells by 10% and reduce physical damage by 10% at the same time. Now, if we look at enchanting, we noticed here before that the shield spell started at 6 points of protection at petty level and went up to 10 points of protection at grand level. But Shock Shield and Frost and Fire, if you want to look them up, but they start at 6, but then they stay at 6 and then go 7, 8, and 9. So the fact of the matter is, they're not as good at higher levels than what shield by itself is. Yes, they're giving you protection against those particular elements, but they are they're not as protective against physical damage. So you need to weigh that up. You could use combinations of shock, frost, and fire shield across those 8 items of equipment, but you would have, like, I don't know, 27 points of shock, 27 points of frost, and 18 points of fire shield, for example. Actually, you probably wouldn't do that. I would probably have the frost shield smaller than the others. But anyway, and you could try and just concentrate on one, like shock, but it's not worth it in this game. There are too many different variations. Although, having said that, when you go into Oblivion, predominantly they use fire against you, so take that as it is. But when you go to using sigil stones, right, and these are the defensive effects, so these are the effects that can go on armor, you'll see that the shield spell, the lowest level sigil stone will give you 8 points. And then it goes to 10, 12, 15, and 20. But when you look at these elemental shields, shock, frost, and fire, they start at 10 points, which is more than you can get using soul gems, and they go all the way up to 25 points. And apparently there is a bug that sometimes the latents give you 25. I wouldn't rely on that, though, because it's probably fixed in the various games you're running. So just wait until you get Transcendent. Now, Transcendent requires you to be a certain level. I think it is... Let's have a look. There's... you have to be level 17 plus to get Transcendent gems. Transcendent sigil stones. But when you can get 25% protection against that element and 25% armor from one enchantment, do it. And that's what I've done in this gear that I'm using at the moment. So you can see I have Fire Shield 25% pants, Frost Shield 25% shoes, and Shock Shield 25% doublet. So between those three, I am maxing out my... between those three, I'm getting 75% armor, and then that those wrist irons are pushing it to 85%, but I don't even need that because my Lord's Birth Sign, if I take that off, it's still 85. My Lord's Birth Sign has given me an extra 15. So technically at the moment, it's at 90, but 85 is the only effective value. You can't go over that. If I put that shield on, it's technically, I'm at 100% shield. So, yes, using sigil stones, which, it's not that hard to farm the sigil stones. There are a lot of open Oblivion gates that you can go to, but even just following the main quest line, that's where I got those. Now, I did farm, in quotes, those sigil stones. So, when you go there and you see the sigil stone, before you pick it up, quick save, pick it up, and as soon as the text appears on the screen up there that says, item acquired, latent sigil stone, or whatever it is, go straight into your inventory and check it out and see what it is. And if it has the shock shield, or the frost shield, or the fire shield, or whatever enchantment you want on it, grab it. If it doesn't, come out of your inventory and quick load back in, and just keep doing that. It doesn't take very long to get what you want. And that's how I got these magicka enchantments as well, because normally you cannot enchant 50 points of magicka using soul gems. So instead, I was able to use sigil stones to do that. And then, once you've got to the armor cap using enchantments, use whatever else you want for your other enchantments. It doesn't matter. I will say, though, that you're better off increasing something like health or magicka or stamina, if you try and use any enchantments, whether it's sigil stones or soul gems, any enchantments, even just spells, if you're going to improve attributes, like you decide that I want to improve strength, that's not going to make your weapon damage any higher. It will allow you to carry more, but it won't make your weapon damage any higher. If you try and do a skill, it will have no effect over 100. So, it is great early game. I'm not going to lie. Early game, if you go and enchant up a full set of Fortify Blade or Fortify Marksman or Fortify Blunt, you're going to do some pretty good damage with that weapon. It's going to bump up the damage that you can do with it. But as you gain levels naturally, that is going to become less and less effective, because eventually you're going to go beyond that 100, and then those enchantments are useless to you, and you might as well just get rid of them and get something better. If you see my next video, which I'm not going to talk any more about, that's the only hint I'm going to give about it, you'll see the better way to improve your weapon damage in Oblivion. But what I want to talk about now that I've talked about this is how to do this at level 1. And I'm going to explain this in my other video as well. But how do I do this? You know, what we saw before with the Petty Soul Gem enchanting at level 1. Well, it's super, super simple. You actually get a Petty Soul Gem in Oblivion in the tutorial dungeon, in the sewers. The goblin witch that you kill has a filled Petty Soul Gem on them. So make sure you grab that. That's 1. And even that, you know, that extra 6% is a good enchantment to start with if you want to bump up your armor. Right? But grab that. The other thing, of course, I think this is the new meta in the game, is definitely pick the Lord's Birth Sign. Like, in my opinion, if you play Oblivion Remastered and you do not pick Breton and the Lord Birth Sign, you're insane. Because Breton gives you 50% magic resistance, straight up, and then the Lord's Birth Sign gives you 15 armor and 15% magic resistance. So you're walking around, as soon as you pick Breton at the very, very start of the game, that's the first choice you make, you start with 50% magic resistance. So, I mean, there's not many times that magic is used against you at that point. It's really that Goblin Witch that I just mentioned is the first thing that uses magic against you. But you're already ignoring 50% of the damage from that, straight up. And then not long after that, you meet back up with the Emperor, and you pick your birth sign. And if you pick Lord's Birth Sign at that point, then from that point on, you are 15 armor, which is better than the armor that you can... Like, if you picked up the heavy armor that was available in the dungeon right there, I think you're at like 8 or 9 armor at that point. And that's without the Lord's Birth Sign. But with it, of course, yeah, fine. You're at 24 or something like that. But, you know, without any armor, you're at 15, right? Add the 6 from a Petty Soul Gem enchantment on a piece of clothing, and that's 21. And I tell you what, if you weren't playing with the Lord's Birth Sign, and you weren't using enchanting to improve your armor, you're actually going to be probably about level 10 before you have an armor rating of 29. And, you know, 21. A single Petty Soul Gem. Well, no, you will be 21. If you go heavy armor, you'll be 21 probably level 3 or 4, maybe. A full set of steel armor, you'll probably be by the time you get that, you'll probably, yes, be around about 21. But still, heavy armor, it is heavy, you've got to keep it repaired. Here, you can wear clothing, and you're at level 1 with 21 armor, and it's only going to get better from there. So you do that, you leave the dungeon, and the first thing that I then do, I leave the dungeon, I come back up here into the Imperial City Market, I sell anything that I made in the dungeon, and then I go around the market, I go around the arena, the Arboretum, not worth going to, Temple District, not worth going to, I come down to the waterfront, then I come back up here to the Talos Plaza District, and the Elven Gardens District. If you go to those ones that I mentioned, there is stuff to loot. And you loot everything that's worth money. And you sell it. Now, this is where I'm going to talk about the one mod that I use, called Summon Magical Chest. Right? And I've even got the Nexus mod page for that, if you're interested. It's just called Summon Magical Chest. This is the name of the mod for Oblivion Remaster. There is not that exact mod in the original, but there is at least 1 or 2 mods in the original that allow you to summon a magical chest in different ways. I think one of them is a ring that you put it on and the chest appears, and the other one is a greater power that you can use as many times as you want per day, and the chest appears. That is the only mod that I recommend. It doesn't break the game. It just means you can carry... You don't have to worry about how much stuff you're carrying. You just chuck it all in the chest, and then when you've got time, you go and sell it all. Right? That, in my opinion, is the only way to play the game. So, I go around, I loot everything around there. I generally then go to the Wayne Priory and get rid of the Amulet of Kings. There's also a couple of items that Joffrey will give you there that you can pick up. And then I start down here in Anvil, and I go to the Fighters Guild, and I go to the Mages Guild, and I join them both, and then I loot them both. You don't get a huge amount from the Fighters Guilds, but there are a few weapons that you can get. There's a few clothes that you can get, but the big one is the Mages Guilds. Even if you decide that you don't want to do the Fighters Guilds, you would still be fine, right? But go into the Mages Guilds, pick up, there'll be lots of blank soul gems. There will be lots of alchemical equipment. The mortar and pestle and calcinator and blah, 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 blah. Grab all of those. They are heavy, so you will want to use the chest and put them all in there. And then books. There's lots and lots of books. Now, every book sells for at least 1 gold. If you want to pick them all up, it's just time-consuming. Me, personally, I tend to know where all the expensive books are. And by expensive, I mean any book that's worth 10 gold or more. Right? When you sell them, you're probably only going to get 5 gold for them. But I grab every book that when you look at it, says it's worth 10 gold or more. I grab all of those. And so I go and I do that in Anvil. And then I go to Skingrad and do the Fighters Guild and the Mages Guild there. And then I go to Breville and I do the Fighters and Mages Guild there. And then I come down to Leyawen. And then I come up here to Shaden Hall. Now, generally after Shaden Hall, I don't continue the circuit around and go to Bruma. Instead, I go over to Coral and I do Coral. And then I go to Bruma because at that point, I've looted all of those and I can sell everything that I don't want to keep in the shops in Bruma. And then I can trudge over and discover Frostcrag Spire. Now, you may have, if you're playing the original game, you can just click on it and go to it because the location is already marked on your map as discovered and you can just go straight to it. Lucky you, yahey. If you are playing the remaster, you may hear somebody talking about Frostcrag Spire. If you do, stop and let them finish talking. Don't go into your inventory. Don't go through a door or anything like that. Just wait for them to finish talking, and it will at least put the marker on the map. Even if it's the slightly grayed out version of it, it'll put it on the map so you know roughly where it is. But if you head out and you head up this way to sort of northeast and try and follow whatever trails you can find, you will eventually come to a trail which goes up a very steep side of a mountain, over sort of this way, and it will come up near Frostcrag Spire. And just make sure you don't go up the very first set of stairs. You'll go across a rope bridge, or a bridge across this little, it's not a very big chasm. You actually walk underneath it and then come around it and go up it. So you walk across that bridge, you go up the hill. Don't go up the very first set of stairs. Wait and go up the second, because it's at the bottom of that second set of stairs that the marker is for Frostcrag Spire. And if you go and do all of this and you haven't actually uncovered that marker, you've got to go and walk that whole path again to get back. So make sure you uncover the marker. And then, as I showed you before, go and grab the key, come in, read the book. Read this book here, because when you first come in this door, this wall here will be closed. This bit of wall here slides from here back, right? So when you come in, that'll be closed. Read this book. You don't have to pick it up. I don't, but you can if you want to, but I just don't know where to put it. I could sell it, but... So anyway, I just leave it. I read it and then just leave it there, and that opens the door. You can then come in. And once that door is open, you can then leave, because none of this other stuff is going to be here. None of that furniture over there is going to be here. None of that furniture over there is going to be here. Those altars up there are not going to be lit up, and nothing up here in this room is going to exist. The teleports exist, but none of this other stuff exists. No chests, nothing. So you need to buy the bedroom to get that chest, that bed, and that cupboard. And then there's other stuff as well that you can get. All of this stuff is there if you're into alchemy, but, you know. So that's what I do. I uncover this, and then once I've uncovered this, after I sold everything in Bruma, if you sell everything from the Mages Guild and the Fighters Guild, you will have about 10,000 gold, right? Which might be surprising, but selling everything you don't want, and that's mostly the alchemical gear and the books that give you all of that, and a few potions and scrolls. As I said, there's a lot of clothes there as well, so keep the sets of clothes, a couple of sets of clothes that you might want to use for enchanting. Having said that, you can come back later and search through those same rooms again, and the clothes will be back. So don't worry too much about that, but you can sell a lot of clothes as well, and you'll have about 10 grand. If you don't do the Fighters Guild, you'll have a couple of grand less than that. But that is enough, because then, as I said, you go to the Mystic Emporium in the Imperial City Markets, talk to the High Elf woman in there, and she will sell you the tallow candles. I think they're called Mage Tallow Candles, and you buy one set of those for 3,200 or 3,600 or whatever it is, and you buy as many filled soul gems as you can find. You will probably find a whole bunch of petties, and you may be lucky to find some lessers. And then you just come back here and enchant up all of your gear using the highest levels that you've got. And then just periodically throughout the game, as you are going up levels, check all of the Mages Guilds for filled soul gems. You can fill the soul gems yourself as well if you want, but go and find empty soul gems. The problem with doing that, though, is unless you know exactly the souls you need. So if you want a common soul, for example, you have to know the creatures that drop common souls. And depending on your level at the time, they might be a little bit above you, a little bit beyond you. So you've got to be careful there. And if you have a common soul gem in your inventory and you do whatever process you're going to do to trap that soul, if you do that on a creature that has a lesser soul, it'll put the lesser soul or the petty soul into that common soul gem and waste it, right? So that is a bit of a pain in the butt. Not going to lie. But yeah, that is what I do to stop my armor killing me in Oblivion. I don't use it. The downside, the only downside of this is you're never getting any skills in the armoring. Now, in armors, light armor or heavy armor, either of those skills are useful if you do later on want to go and do the arena, because you have to wear armor in the arena, either light or heavy. It doesn't matter what type of build you're doing. You can do the arena as a mage and they force you to wear armor, and you can't just say, oh, I'll use this armor and then not put it on. No, you have to wear it. And so that is a problem. But you know, did this character get all the way through? No, it was another character I did it with. No, I'm a warrior in the arena. I haven't finished the arena as this character, but I have been fighting in the arena as this character. I've finished the arena several times with different builds. I'm pretty sure I have a mage build that I have finished the arena with. And you are just forced to wear the armor. Actually, I was coming out here to point out these teleports. These teleports take you to the different mage guilds in the different cities, including the Imperial one. It makes too much noise out there, so let's go back up here. I think I went the wrong way. No, that was the right way. Okay, we're back up here on the top of the tower. There's the Imperial City down there. So yeah, the problem with doing this is that you're not leveling up any armor skills. So no heavy armor, no light armor. That some people will say, well, it slows you down, so you're not gaining levels as quickly. Well, maybe. The other thing is that if you do this, because you can do this with any build, and I recommend it. Like as I was saying, I play warriors that are Bretons with no armor. I do that. And I'm going to show you some of that in the next video. It's the way to go, in my opinion. The problem there, though, is you don't have skill in armorer to repair your weapons. You can still repair them, but you have lesser skill in that. And even, it's not that you're not, like, you can take that as a skill. You can use that as one of your major skills. But what I'm getting at is, when you play and you use armor, you are having to repair that after every single fight. Not dungeon, but fight. To ensure that you don't die. Right? And that levels up that armor ability very, very quickly. Your weapon does not degrade anywhere near as quickly as your armor does. You could probably get away in remastered, in particular, you could get away with only repairing your weapon a couple of times in a dungeon and you would be fine. But not so much in the original Oblivion, because the creatures that you fight against, your weapons do less damage and the opponents have more health, so they feel squishier, so you have to hit them more, so your weapon degrades more. So there's that. But that's really the only negative about doing this. Everything else is a bonus. Everything else is, I don't have to, it weight my armor weighs almost nothing because it's clothes. It never degrades, and it always gives me 100% of the protection value that's written on it. I never have to worry that over time I'm getting less protection from my armor because it's degrading from being hit. It just makes the game easy, in my opinion. And for the first time ever, I'm actually considering, like, changing the difficulty level in the game from adept to something else. Because with these two tricks that I'm showing, this one and my next video, it's almost too easy on a depth level. And in the original, it makes the game, in the original version of Oblivion, it makes the game playable to do this. Now, in the Oblivion, there are some other things that I'll be bringing up in my next video that are still hard. But from the point of view of protecting yourself, this is a no-brainer, and it works in both versions of the game. It is the way to go. So I hope that this was useful. I hope you endured all my ramblings to get the full benefit of this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. So I will leave you there, and we will see you for the next video. Thanks a lot. Bye now.